the great devil, and we got to kill as many of them as possible. Yeah. I hope you enjoy some farm fresh gold milk.
After that first address to the nation, Bush is unavailable until 7 p.m. that night. Cheney is at the White House in the war room and is, for all intents and purposes, president on September 11th by design.
Well, Liz, we finally made it to the White House. Finally made it to the Oval Office.
You know, when I come down to think about it, would I have killed 3,000 people to be president again? Yep. Every time. Yep.
So, in a testimony to the 9/11 Commission, much of which, by the way, a lot of this testimony was omitted from the final report. In this testimony, former Secretary of Transportation Norma Mineta, who was president, said about a specific order Cheney gave about Flight 77 on the way to the Pentagon.
No, this is actually how he sounded. I've heard this speech several times.
All right.
I was made aware of it during the time that the airplane coming into the Pentagon, there was a young man who had come in and he had said to the vice president, the plane is 50 miles out, the plane is 30 miles out, and what got down to, the plane is 10 miles out. The young man also said to the vice president, did the order still stand? And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, of course the order still stand. Have you heard anything in the contrary?
Now, but to be fair, he was discussing the order of lobster that they had gotten from the kitchen in the White House, and he was very hungry on 9/11.
And then he had a flame-throwing umbrella that he opened and closed several times and shot flame all over, shot over several hot dogs that we put on the grill next to him. And he said, lunch, I love lunch. It's my favorite meal because it's in the center of the day. It's the most inconvenient meal.
Intern, come and chew up the bacon for me.
Chew up the bacon and spit in my mouth, little baby bird. Yeah.
So, regarding that day and Dick Cheney setting up himself to be in just the right position, in May of 2001, Dick Cheney was placed in charge of managing the seamless integration of all training exercises throughout the federal government and military agencies. He was made that by presidential mandate. George Bush essentially said to him, all right, Dick, you take care of this. This is your deal. You have complete and total control over all training exercises in the entire government.
So he was in charge of the war games.
He was in charge of the war games.
Which you would think would be again, previous Secretary of Defense.
Yes.
But you would think it would be the current Secretary of Defense and the current president's ressibility.
You would think so. And on the morning...
Don Rumsfeld was just whittling statues of graphically naked women in another room. And Dick Cheney was like, by that point, he had received the president, he gave him his gift. He had an Amazon wish list for his birthday. And what he gave him was a silver-tipped cane and a big white cat that he would just stroke in the other room.
So on the morning of 9/11, there were multiple war games and terror drills being conducted, all under the management and direction of Dick Cheney, including a drill on the west side of Manhattan called Tripod 2, which set up a command and control center that was configured exactly like the one in Building 7 and was under Cheney's management before the hijackings occurred. And while the government says that they had never thought that something like this could ever happen, there had been 46 separate drills to prepare NORAD for this exact type of scenario. And in fact, September 11th itself was day 2 of Vigilant Guardian, which was an exercise that would pose an imaginary crisis to North American air defense outposts nationwide.
And there were, jets that were normally there for protection of the United States were scrambled. They were over in Canada. They were all over the country. Like, things were there was a lot of air traffic and things were moving all over the place.
There was some in Russia as well.
Yes. And so there was a lot of stuff going on 9/11. It wasn't just specifically the day of 9/11. It just happened to be
that they were running a drill in Manhattan for some crazy reason that during the same exact time that caused a lot of confusion.
Right.
Yeah.
No, this all began under when Dick Cheney became Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
And the Secretary of State, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It was like he was preparing for a forever war without there being a war yet. It was like he was just preparing for it, like it was just going to happen one day for some reason.
I mean, and think about these drills. Think about the daisy chain of, is this a drill? No, it's real life. Is this a drill? No, it's real life. Over, and one person to the next person. And we hear that. Like, that is one of the clips that they play over and over again, is the people at the people at American Airlines talking to NORAD, and NORAD's like, is this a drill? And they say, no, it's real life. How many times did that happen?
Well, you know, I mean, that's just
also massive chain of command problems on the day of 9/11. The Joint Chiefs of Staff was literally out. His assistant was in. So in order for you to scramble jets, when the thing happens, when the planes go off the radar, how it happens is the FAA calls like the government, like a part of like the work of transportation that goes to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that goes to Donald Rumsfeld, that goes to him scrambling jets. The Joint Chiefs of Staff was gone. His fucking deputy was there. It was his first day ever running the position of Joint Chiefs of Staff. He didn't really know what to do. Then they went to go look for Donald Rumsfeld, and there were several people who said Donald Rumsfeld in the middle of 9/11 when it was happening was nowhere to be seen. The guy who is the job. The guy, that's his job, is to be there for that one time. He's supposed to be there for the half an hour while 9/11 is happening. That is what he's supposed to do. He was gone.
Yeah, we don't know where he was, though. I mean, you know, just because he wasn't hanging around with some random intern, you know. But, you know, that's what they do, though. To get someone really broken down and then make sure that they're always on their edge, they never really let them know if it's a game or if it's not or if it's real. Yeah. You know, Ariel Castro, to use a very micro analogy, what he did with the girls in Cleveland, he would leave and come back, fake leave, see if they were escaping. After 5 years, they stopped trying to escape. Yeah, exactly. You officially broke them. I mean, that's what you do.
Since this was the 46th drill, these guys didn't give a shit anymore. Right. Can you imagine one guy being like, yeah, I'll get to it. They're like, oh my God, the planes are coming. They've crashed. We need to scramble the jets. Because like, I'll get to it. I'm going to finish eating my breakfast sandwich.
Yeah, I'm reading this Archie comic. Can you believe him and Betty are about to get together? Oh my. I would also, it's very interesting to also, I think, to point towards what Ben said, it was a very interesting choice of Dick Cheney to put Ariel Castro on the cabinet for that period of time where he was, you know, of course, being like, we took the $3 and we tied them to the pole with the Douglas. We took the towers and I tied them to the pole. They don't have sex with me. I tied them to the pole with the Douglas. And then finally they were like, Ariel, love your energy, love your accent, but we already got one Mexican in the whole scenario. We already got a Mexican chef. All right, we can't have two of them. Thanks, though, buddy.
So despite the machinations of people at the highest levels of government, because, you know, when you look at all this, all it takes is for Dick Cheney to give a couple orders. And not a whole lot of people have to know that all of this shit is going on. He has put himself into a position of power where he has to do is give a few orders, and there does not need to be a conspiracy of thousands upon thousands of people. Right. And in fact, despite their machinations, the American people had chances to stop 9/11 from happening, and we failed. See, intelligence officials have been howling for years about bin Laden and al-Qaeda being the biggest threat to America, and more than one FBI agent said in later interviews, they said that their first thought after the planes hit, they didn't even blink. They just like, told you so. Yeah, we told you this was going to happen.
But, I mean, that's why people demonize Bill Clinton so unbelievably heavily, because he didn't go and kill bin Laden when he should have. Everybody knew that he should have, but, you know, he's too busy, you know, cigar-popping Monica. I mean, it was unbelievably pathetic, but meanwhile, everyone's just like, oh, what a peaceful time we had in the 90s.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as peace.
No.
You have to take action, and Bill Clinton refused to do so.
We know
Bill Clinton was doing what the 60s failed to do, was literally make love, not war.
Well, he was kind of raping an intern. But
no, he wasn't raping her.
You know, yeah.
He was molesting her.
Oh, yeah, molesting.
Well, what Bill Clinton said about why he didn't go get Osama bin Laden is he said, you know what, to do that, I would have had to just destroy this little town called Kandahar. Kandahar is the second most populous city in Afghanistan. It has 500,000 people in it. It's not a little village.
Well, I tell you, if he had a Big Mac in his pocket, I would have come and gotten. That's a McDonald's joke. Because of I used to be a lot of McDonald's jokes back in the day. But most of the listeners of this show are 15 years old. And they don't remember the hilarious SNL skits featuring my McDonald's precolations.
Anyway, but back to that point, though. But, we did destroy that town.
Yeah.
And, a lack of action just pawned it off to another administration. They took the action. We're going to see the exact same cycle happen in this next election cycle.
Exactly.
And I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. This right here, the reason why we didn't get these guys, it's another example that we see again and again in our research and in serial. I mean, this relates to like serial killer investigations. Why these guys don't get caught sooner. Different law enforcement agencies not communicating with each other because they all want to see who has the biggest dick. See, the FBI had an informant in California who was going to flight school with 2 of the hijackers, but since the CIA, who knew that Al-Qaeda members were in the country at flight schools, didn't tell them about their investigation, the hijackers slipped through their fingers because the CIA knew that these guys, they're like, all right, these 2 guys are on a watch list. And the FBI has a guy that they're handling that is going to flight school with 2 of the hijackers. And they're not, since they aren't talking to each other, these guys just go free. And the handler asked afterwards, he was just like, yeah, I didn't know. You told me to look for these guys. They weren't there. I didn't tell you about these other guys because you didn't tell me to look for them.
We have the greatest intelligence community in the face of the on Earth. But, and I think the idea behind that is competitiveness breeds excellence.
Yeah.
Right? But at some point, after you guys both get like, hey, you're an A number 1, you're an all-star, let's have an all-star game. And let's get together and let's sit in the same locker room and try to work together a little bit.
Also, if we want to talk about a systemic leaning towards letting this event happen, we want to get back into full-on conspiracy view, which is what I view is that it came from what technically was the head of the pile, was Dick Cheney, because he was operating on the secret side of the government that Bush was either electively choosing not to be a part of. He let Dick Cheney handle a bunch of shit. There was a decision from the very top to maybe let this happen or maybe give it a little bit of a nudge so that it definitely would happen. They wanted this. Dick Cheney wanted this in his blood. He wanted this to be his legacy. They were like, this whole point was to create what they said from 1997, a new American century, where if you read that document and those plans about making America the police of the world, and eventually we're going to find out using corporations to tie the whole world together in what is essentially the New World Order that I now completely believe in. Because but it's not the UN, it's not the Bilderberg Group, it's not all this shit. It's a bunch of it's McDonald's. It's these companies that are just massive international conglomerates, and Dick Cheney was a fucking part of Halliburton. He's been hanging out with those guys for fucking years.
What was it?
They've been trying to make money. This whole thing's about money.
Of course. 1933, right? That's when the Rothschilds brought everyone together, brought the 8 corporations together, and that's where it all really began.
Yeah, that's where it began.
I mean, they literally told George W. Bush to go read a children's story. Like, that's what they...
Not even read, just listen to one.
Right.
Pat him on the head. And the look on his face, the whippity what, like look on his face when they're telling him that what's happening, and it's just like, it's literally like he may as well have cartoon eyes going like boing, like out of his face. I think he's such a silly man.
In his head, he must have pictured Cheney with fire coming out of his breath, just like a skull of Cheney, just like flying multiple times at him, the
motorcycle. The one thing I can't hold, one thing I'm afraid of, is that this means I'm going to have to get in a hand-to-hand death combat fight with Dick Cheney. And I'll tell you what, I'm pretty scared of that because I don't know. I know that he's got a weak heart, and I could technically dress as a clown and hide in a box and pop out of it and probably kill him. But I hear he's got metal spider legs that come out of a backpack that he got in his secret office.
But you know what? What is terrifying is that government isn't in control. Government is not the NWO. We've been talking about this for a little while. And the scary thing is government is theoretically there for the people. Corporations are not. Corporations lie to you on a regular basis. They're there for profit. So the fact that the NWO was actually corporations, it's much, much scarier than if it was actual government.
Yes.
And who owns our government? The people giving these politicians the money it takes for them to buy their yachts and the children they like to have sex with.
That's why you got to vote for Donald Trump, everybody. That's what this is all about.
I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. You're really changing. You're spending too much time in Fox News.
They don't like him. They don't like him. No, I'm just just joking around.
So there are multiple examples of intelligence failures. For example, former White House counterterrorism coordinator Richard Clarke, he speculated that the CIA intentionally withheld advanced knowledge of 2 of the 9/11 hijackers from the White House and the FBI in an attempt to cover up the agency's failed effort to recruit the 2 al-Qaeda members as assets. Is that they were, until the day they got on the plane, the CIA was trying to court these guys to bring them over to their side. And they didn't, these guys weren't put on watch lists. Actually, it wasn't until the day of, it was 19 days before 9/11. Right. Finally, 19 days before 9/11, the CIA goes, all right, actually, no. We've waited as long as we can. We can't get these guys under our control. Put them on the watch list. Put them on the watch list.
Right.
No, nowhere near long enough for us to. Maybe today, maybe in 2015, 19 days would have been long enough, but not in 2001, not 14 years ago.
That's also what we discussed with Timothy McVeigh and things like that. These people were monitored by the government. Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, they got him, very, very close to getting on that plane. He had literally had a wick hanging out of his shoe.
That's what Marcus and I had a long conversation about the other day, about the ideas that they catch so many very serious terror things out secretly that they can't let us know, because if we were to know how many times they tried to destroy New York, like 5 to like a month, we would not be able to get on the subway anymore psychologically. So they have to set up these guys and catch them and be like, look what we got. We got one.
They have to set up the safe ones. They have to do the sting operations like, okay, this safe. This is safe. Okay, we got them. Because seriously, yeah, if we did know, like this, New York would turn into a paranoid powder keg. We would be at each other's throats. Yes, we talked about last week about how New Yorkers very much come together during times of crisis. But you also saw after 9/11 how many Arabs and Sikhs that are not even Muslim got beaten half to death in the streets here in New York City.
Oh, absolutely. Chicago had a whole series of violence against them. Just recently, we had a massive Sikh shooting at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin. This man's such a moron. Sikhs are some of the nicest, most peaceful people on the face of the planet. The Ground Zero Mosque was the biggest issue for a couple of years. It literally was a recreation center for people that were whatever. Maybe some were Muslim. Anyone could be there. People went crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can't know. We just cannot know. And yeah, like you said, Ben, like the CIA and the FBI, they save our lives all the time. They do a great fucking job most of the time. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Or they specifically don't want it to work.
Yeah.
They specifically allow things to happen.
Right. So let's talk about the results of all of this. What happened? Cui bono.
Oh my God.
So starting with the anti-terrorism appropriation of money a week after the 9/11 attacks, it is estimated that the U.S. in the first 5 years of the war on terror, just in the first 5 years, we spent $400 billion.
Right.
We are now in our 14th year.
And that is money. That is just the money on the books.
Yeah.
Never mind the money that's off the books.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that, like, the promotions that happened after 9/11.
Yeah.
Condoleezza Rice got promoted. Richard, what's his name? Myers, the guy who took over for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was promoted. These people they all got handouts after failing on 9/11.
Yeah, and these defense contractors, the defense business in America wasn't doing great before 9/11. They hadn't sold a whole lot of weapons before 9/11. In fact, Vought Aircraft, they had laid off 20% of its employees, and they were actually on the decline. After the wars began, they received over $1 billion in defense contracts. And of course, as we all know, the war in Afghanistan gave way to the war with Iraq, which started 2 years later in 2003, fueled by lies and the anger of the American public, which is exactly what they wanted all of you to feel. That is exactly what they wanted.
Right. It was total madness. And the axis of evil speech was totally insane,
Jesus
completely
Christ.
out there. For those that don't remember, the axis of evil, it was Iraq, Afghanistan, and out of nowhere, North Korea. Out of absolutely nowhere.
No, it wasn't even Afghanistan.
They had a perfect villain leader.
It was Iraq, Iran, and North Korea.
Yeah.
They were really hoping he was going to be more dangerous than he is.
Yeah,
he's a fucking child. He's an asshole.
Yeah,
they can't put together a fucking rocket program.
Yeah, it was a cartoon. They ended up with a cartoon. And so... Okay, and as far as the Bush family goes and the bin Laden family goes and how they both profited off of this, it would take literally hours for us to go over how entangled the Bush family is with the
bin Laden family was flown out of America the week after September 11th.
Yeah, and both the Bushes and the bin Ladens, just very surface-wise, were a part of a company called the Carlyle Group, who buys and sells defense companies and doubles or triples their values. Now, admittedly, the group severed ties with the bin Ladens in October of 2001, but regardless of that, in 2002, the firm received $677 million in government contracts, and by 2003, its contracts were worth $2.1 billion.
And another huge selling point was that the war was going to pay for itself. In 2000, we basically had no deficit. We had a surplus. We had a surplus. By the end of the 8 years, now we're at 19 trillion. I believe at the end it was 10 trillion.
Yeah.
So it obviously did not pay for itself, and we paid with blood. We paid with loot. We paid with everything.
Yeah.
Do we play with tokens?
No, we didn't pay with tokens.
Because that's how I like to pay for things. I like to pay. I hope I can play the Smash the Monkey game with some of this 9/11 money.
By the way, I think that game was taken out of a store recently because someone perceived it as racist.
Jesus.
But anyway, that's not what this is about.
Yep. And William Bucky Bush, one of the lesser-known Bushes, he also made a sizable sum of money because he sat on the board of a major military contractor called Engineered Support Systems. And the military-industrial complex in the Bushes, it goes all the way back to Prescott Bush. Like, it goes back generations.
Prescott Bush, probably one of the most evil figures, besides Dick Cheney, in all of American history.
Yeah. And the thing is about, how, you notice we're not talking about George W. Bush a whole lot in this. And we're not talking about Osama bin Laden a whole lot, besides them just, kind of the funny stuff here and there, is because bin Laden and Bush were essentially mirror images of each other. They were both easily manipulated figureheads with a penchant for religion, Islam on one side, Christianity on the other, who could draw attention away from the people actually in power.
And Osama bin Laden had been cast as the villain years ago. They made him, they trained him, they did the whole thing. They gave him the motive. They put the gun in his hand. They did a bunch of shit. He was happy to accept it. He's not a cool dude.
He's malicious.
He wanted to be the villain, so he became the villain. And George Bush was a hapless man who's just the fall guy.
But that's all perspective. Osama did not want to be the villain. He was the hero.
And yeah, exactly.
In his world.
And W was the hero. Dick Cheney's the hero. All these people are heroes.
Yeah, exactly. In their own eyes, they are the heroes. I mean, George Bush, he just wanted to be Uncle George. Like, if George was your next door neighbor, he'd be the cool guy that throws barbecues and like he always has Heineken.
Yeah, they called the 2000 election the election you choose who you want to have a beer with.
Yeah, exactly. And George Bush, I would much rather have a beer with George Bush than Al Gore.
Still,
yes.
To this day. Actually, kind of Dick Cheney too.
Dick Cheney would only he just drinks out of a pewter skull goblet, and he's just like, "Do you have wine? I like how it looks like blood."
And in addition to that, these guys were just clueless rich kids. They're both clueless rich kids just playing at games.
Family Feud. Saddam is the guy who tried to kill my father.
Yeah.
Classic W quote, taking an entire nation to war.
Yeah, exactly.
That we're still paying for it.
So while 9/11 may not have been completely orchestrated by higher-ups in the U.S. government, definitely evidence to support that they gave it a nudge or two, and definitely evidence that people in Saudi Arabia had a very large role to play on the other side. But it is important to note, none of it is hard evidence. It is all circumstantial. If there was hard evidence, these people would be in prison right now. At least hard evidence that we know, that we have out there. There is no hard evidence out there. It is all circumstantial. And it is definitely my belief that the real conspiracy of 9/11 was between American corporations and rogue elements within the U.S. government and rogue elements within the Saudi Arabian government and Saudi Arabian corporations. And guess what, guys? It's over. They won.
Well, they definitely won the insured forever war.
Yeah, they won. 2000, I believe, was the last election that truly mattered. Like, it's after that, if Al Gore would have gotten into office, yes, 9/11 might have happened. Yes, Dick Cheney might have found a way to nudge it on, but we wouldn't have gone to Iraq. And it's very possible that Citizens United, which gave corporations the power to be people and to buy and sell politicians openly, might not have happened. The only thing left to do is to wait until the corporations have eaten everything but themselves. And when they finally devour themselves, if any of us are still alive,
right,
that's when we can be free again.
And we're watching, we're done. America is a series of corporations that buy a bunch of politicians. Everything you watch is propaganda or a hologram. That is just the truth. You should be reading news from multiple countries if you want to have any sort of real perspective of what's going on in America. You need to read on news that's happening outside of America. We live in a hologram reality, and there's a part of us that is, and does Dick Cheney sit with fucking Draco in a sauna all the time? And he's just like, I can't sit in the sauna too long because my blood gets too hot and then I pass out. And Dick Cheney's like, I have the same problem.
They crushed it. They succeeded in dividing and conquering.
Yeah.
The country is more destabilized than ever. 93 war on drugs. What they started with militarizing the police there was re-upped during the war on terror. That's why we're seeing exactly what we have in Ferguson, in Baltimore, every single place around this country. They succeeded. And as Obama did his job to pull out of the Middle East because he's the dove, again, the illusion of choice. Non-action is action. As Bill Clinton wanted to be the sweet dove, not going in, forcing 9/11 to occur, when Obama pulled out, forcing ISIS to form a huge caliphate, guarantees we're going to be going back right in there. Whoever is the next president, we are going back to war, guaranteed forever war, ideological, no land barriers.
Can I also then, because now that we've said this, we've gone through all evidence, can I talk about how all of this is horseshit? Because one time we did not at once talk about the theory of 11, the connection to Aleister Crowley's reveal from the element of waste, and how the towers were part of an incantation to fall what used to be the Atlantean Pillars of Hermes.
Guess what, Henry? That's what we are covering in part 3 of 9/11. The magic. Because did you know that there was Korean Flight 85 that was redirected down into the Yukon? And do you know what the airport was called? It was called White Horse Airport. And you know what White Horse is? White Horse is a slang for heroin. You know who sang a song that had the term White Horse in it? That would be Ozzy Osbourne. What was the name of the song? It was Mr. Crowley, who was the air traffic controller in charge at White Horse Airport. Go to the airport. The airport. Who was that? Mr. Tim Crowley.
And I use that analogy.
175 stands for 175 connected to Crowley.
We got a whole episode. All right, I'm sorry, Henry. We don't want to spill the beans. Yeah. Okay, we got a whole nother episode to do here.
And we didn't even. But also on a serious note, we didn't even get to the EPA cover up that the air around Ground Zero was. They say, what is it? As caustic and alkaline as Drano. Right afterwards, the EPA and President Bush said the air is safe. You can all go in there. Right. Everyone can go back to their jobs at Wall Street. You can go in there and clean up and try to find some rescue. Try to give us a little more, a little bit more hope.
Breathe
and
deeply.
There are 70,000 people may have respiratory problems due to the dust. Hundreds have died from horrific illnesses.
This is corporation logic. Hate to always say the NFL is an analogy, but they didn't tell anybody about the concussions forever and forever and forever. Just go play. Everything is fine. And of course, it turns out many, many people die because this heartless corporate idea.
Yeah.
Atlantean invocation.
All right, I can't wait for part 3, guys.
Yeah, the number 11. 2 towers looking like 11s. Flight number 11.
digest it. Just think about it. All right.
Thank you so much for continuing on this journey with us. Thanks everyone for all of their kind words on the first episode. Thank you so much for liking it. I want to thank Sammy Coughlin and Megan Fiora-Root for helping me out with research on this. Both you guys were amazing troopers. Specifically, Sammy sitting in this hot fucking studio with me, researching molten steel rates and molten aluminum rates for 10 hours straight.
No. We got our first nerd alert.
Oh man, way late.
Wow,
and if you guys out there, if you want to buy Last Podcast on the Left t-shirts, you can go to cavecomedyradio.com/merch. Yeah. Follow us all on Twitter. Follow us on Last Podcast at LP on the Left.
I'm at Ben Kissel. Marcus Parks is at Marcus Parks, and you can find Henry on Twitter at Henry Loves You.
And I would say, fuck, man, Heil Geen.
Heil Geen, hail yourselves. Thanks so much for supporting all the shows here on CCR, Top Hat, Roundtable, Sex and Other Human Activities, page 7.
Yeah. And especially if you really enjoyed this episode, and specifically the politics on this episode, go listen to Abe Lincoln's Top Hat. It's the politics show that me and Ben do together.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the loose ends. We'll talk about the 2000 election. We'll talk about some things that we weren't able to get to in this episode.
The boring stuff.
I'll make it exciting.
To make sure, remember, Satan is the lamplight of all honesty. He destroys all shadows. Hail him every single day of your life. And Heroes, September 24th, 8 p.m. on NBC.
It's coming up.
I'm doing Red Eye on September 23rd.
Cool.
Well, wait, on the 24th, because it's at 3 o'clock in the morning. Henry, when does Heroes air?
I don't know. I don't understand time math.
I don't know either. All right, well, we can watch Henry and I on the 24th.
Yeah, and go buy the Cowman album. But I'm not going to play a song at the end of a 9/11 episode.
No, it's bad for branding.
It's bad for plugs altogether. We probably shouldn't be plugging it.
Sincerely, guys, thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.
I wash my hands to protect my family.
I wear a face covering to protect my mates.
I make space to protect my colleagues.
Hands.
Face.
Space.
I wash my hands to protect strangers.
I wear a face covering to protect other passengers.
I make space to protect you. Hands.
Face.
Space. As we spend more time indoors, we need to do whatever we can to help protect each other from coronavirus. So please, wash hands, cover face, make space.
Walk with me, Nick Carvel, on my Passeggiata podcast episode, an Italian ritual the Italians have always walked, not to any destination or for any reason, but for a walk. A walk with whom we want, when we want, where we want. A walk to appreciate the little things. Walk with Us, a podcast series brought to you by Peroni Italia. For the facts, visit drinkaware.co.uk.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
You ready to do this?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going. Wait a second, something's coming towards the window. It's a plane.
Oh my God, we're starting this episode with that. All the goodwill from our first 2 episodes about 9/11 out the window. Welcome to the Last Podcast on the Left, everybody. Episode 3 on 9/11. Today's episode, I know Henry Zabrowski has been looking forward to it. Marcus Parks has been looking forward to it. I, Ben Kissel, have my nerd alert ready to go. We're discussing mysticism, Satan, and a whole series of other bizarre things dealing with 9/11.
The 9/11 mega ritual, Ben.
Ooh, okay.
Otherwise known as the capital T fucking truth.
Oh, all right. Well, that's me.
So we've gone through, I'm going to say straight up, we've gone through a lot of horse shit in the last 2 episodes about, like, what was real, and they did really good journalism about politics. What we're going to talk about today is the absolute truth about the event, the mega ritual known as 9/11 to us, and known as the celebration of the opening of the mouths to heaven, in occurrence to the teachings of Aleister Crowley. That's the long title. That's the prog rock title. Dogmeat did a lot of research about episodes 1 and 2, and then Dogmeat, Too Real, myself went and we read a book called The Most Dangerous Book in the World, 9/11 is Match Ritual, and I gotta say it is a bit difficult. And we're gonna go through that. But first of all, what I'd like to do, so we are releasing this purposefully today on September 11th in accordance to the ritual, right, Marcus?
Yeah, absolutely.
After the 9/11 episodes, can we stop calling you dog meat? I can't deal with it, Too Real.
That's like saying Marcus's last name, it was in Parks, all right? Or in real life, Shifty Spaghetti.
Well, yes, that's true.
Marcus's real name is Dogmeat Shifty Spaghetti, and it's been that way since the beginning. You're the one who's wearing the sunglasses. You know what I'm saying? Sunglasses that help you deny the reality. Me, I'm wearing bifocals. I'm seeing 2 levels of pure truth 24/7 because I'm too real to be loved.
I think you just referenced John Carpenter's They Live. Rest in peace, Roddy Piper.
But before we get into the truth, I want to talk about another version of the truth. It's a type of there's a theory that goes around because, again, Too Real here. I often believe in the hologram system, right? That we're living in a hologram universe, and guess what? Too Real is too real for.
The hologram universe?
So I'm saying we're living in a hologram. All right. And according to, I want to just, because I was really curious about the 9/11 as a hologram idea. Because there's a lot of people who truly do believe, a lot of very lonely, broken human beings who truly believe that 9/11 did not happen. That it was just it was a big movie, which would have been an awesome fucking movie. But unfortunately, 3,000 people had to die to make the movie. And then countless millions other Iraqis that did nothing. That we just blew up.
So when they say it's a hologram, do they believe that there were no actual victims? Do they think all these people were actors?
There are 2 different even levels to the hologram theory. One is that it didn't happen at all, that it was doctored video. But the real hologram guys say that's horseshit. What really happened is that there were B-2 bombers covered with a hologram type technology called PRIC, which stands for Projected Imagery Controlled Kinetics, that shot a missile into Tower 2 and left while it was cloaked in mystery. And there's several bits of facts that are totally true that I don't know actually if they are true. Written by John Lear, who is a big theorist. He was a theorist about crypto animals and like all this different. He was a really great paranormal kind of like hub of reason. And then when 9/11 happened, he went completely insane. But this is a couple of things that they say. The planes could not possibly have traveled as at what they said was 480 knots colliding into the World Trade Center. The fastest the 767 travel is 360 knots, all right? And that's 480 knots. That's 120 knots faster than the plane's even designed to go because of the drag. There's dragging in there.
But what
holograms, government's building. Shut up, Ben. You don't know.
I'm just saying.
Holograms have been designed by the government since the 60s. They've had these fucking holograms forever. You think that Ernest Borgnine's real?
Yes.
You're an asshole. You're an asshole.
What happened?
He was in Escape from New York. Oh my God.
Asshole. Ernest Borgnine is hologram. All right. Planes slice through the building like butter. They called it cartoon physics. All right. Also, too quiet. All right? Nobody heard the planes coming in. Almost silent approach. That's what they said. Well, apparently, a plane coming through downtown should have had 140 decibels. It's equivalent to sitting in front row in a fucking Van Halen concert. People should have been like rockets. You would have been like, is that fucking Panama plane? And all of a sudden, boosh, 9/11. And they've been like, what? So the government had a flight path measured out that was right next to the actual physical flight path of the plane that hit the World Trade Center. So what happened is they're saying that the real one was the B-2 had a hologram on it, and it was shooting through the thing, and we know that all this is true because they made a gigantic hologram duck in Japan, and you know that they have the technology to cloak 2 different planes. They made a missile look like a plane, and they made a B-2 look like a fucking cloud. Or they made it look like something. I don't know what they made it look like. It could have looked like a red balloon, and a girl was like, look at the balloon up in the sky, and then all of a sudden, 9/11 fucking happened.
Again, waiter, check please. The date has to end at this point. So hardcore evidence. It's cartoon science. The duck.
The duck, yes, the duck. You can't fucking discount the duck. And there's also people that say that there were people on the roof of the Woolworths building that shot missiles into the World Trade Center at the exact same moment that a 747 or a gigantic hologram supposedly hit the building.
I mean, I want this to be real because I want our government to actually be able to do something. Yeah. You know, we can't even build a bridge in Minnesota, for Christ's sake.
I honestly don't think, yes, these are for the truly lost, the truly, like, upset people. I understand. You really don't believe these towers came down. Again, I mean, too real. I'm too real. Dogmeat and I, we are government shills. That is just the straight up truth. We've been accused on the internet, and I just want to say, I can show you the check stubs
that I
got from the CIA. I'm sorry, but it's just the truth.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
secret meeting. Barack Obama called in his chief of staff. Was like, "Get me the fattest and the stringiest podcast as you can find." I don't know why he sounds like John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, give me dog meat.
Give me dog meat. Give me too real.
And so we're helping build the fantasy hologram reality that the towers came down naturally because of the planes, and that's why what we want to do is